Good morning. We are beginning today with the Srimad Devi Bhagavata Purana, Book 9, Chapter 21. So we just ended the final conversation between Shankarchuda and his wife Tulsi, and he is now going to war against Shiva and Shiva's army. Sri Narayana spoke. Then the Danava, the devotee of Sri Krishna, Shankarchuda is the devotee of Sri Krishna, got up from his flower-strewn bed, meditating on Sri Krishna, early in the morning time at the Brahma Muhurta. Quitting his night dress, he took his bath in pure water and put on a fresh-washed clothing. He then put the bright tilak mark on his forehead, and performing the daily necessary worship, he worshipped his Ishta Devata. He then saw the auspicious things, saw the auspicious things means it's a morning ritual of looking at certain auspicious things. Curd, ghee, honey, fried rice, etc. And distributed as usual to the Brahmins the best jewels, pearls, clothing, and gold. Then, for his marching to war to turn out auspicious, he gave at the feet of his Guru Deva priceless gems, jewels, pearls, diamonds, etc. His Guru Deva would be Shukracharya. And finally, that is especially the reason for the diamonds, which are the favored gem of Shukracharya. And finally, he gave to the poor Brahmins with great gladness elephants, horses, wealth, thousands of stores, 2 lakhs of cities, and 100 kotis of villages. He then gave over to his son the charge of his kingdom and of his wife, and all the dominions, wealth, property, all the servants and maidservants, all the stores and conveyances. Put him in charge of everything. He dressed himself for war, took up bows and arrows and arrow cases or quivers. By the command of the Raja, the armies began to gather. 3 lakhs of horses, 1 lakh elephants, 1 ayuta chariots, 3 kotis of bowmen, 3 kotis of armored soldiers, and 3 kotis of trident holders got themselves ready. Then the Raja counted his forces and appointed 1 Maharatha, a commander-in-chief, skilled in arts of warfare, over the whole army. Thus the generals were appointed over the 3 lakh Akshauhini forces, and their provisions were collected by 300 Akshauhini men. He then, thinking of Srihari, started for war, accompanied by his vast army. He then mounted on a chariot built of excellent jewels and, headed by his guru and all his other elders, went to Shankara, their enemy. O Narada, Bhagavan Mahadeva was at that time staying on the banks of the Pushpabhadra river, at the place of Siddhashrama, a sacred hermitage. It was the place where the Muni Kapila practiced tapasya, the holy land of Bharata. It was bounded on the east by the Western Ocean, on the west by the Malaya Mountain, on the south by the Sri Shaila Mountain, and on the north by the Gandhamadana Mountain. It was 5 yojanas wide and 100 times as long. This auspicious river, this is referring to the Pushpabhadra River, this auspicious river in Bharata yields great religious merits and is always full of clear, sparkling, running water. She is the favorite wife of the salt ocean, since the rivers that flow into the ocean are poetically called the wives of the ocean, and she is very blessed. Issuing from the Sharavati Himalayas, she drops into the ocean. Keeping the river Gomati by her left, she falls into the West Ocean. Shankarchuda, arriving there, in sight of the Pushpabhadra River, saw Mahadeva under a peepal tree near its root with a smiling countenance, like a koti of suns seated in a yogic posture. Mahadeva's color was white like a pure crystal, as if the fire of Brahman was emitting from every pore of his body, burning with Brahma Teja. He was wearing the tiger skin and holding a trident and an axe. He dispels the fear of death of his bhaktas. His face was quite calm, even on the very brink of battle. He, the husband of Gauri, is the giver of the fruits of tapasya and of all sorts of wealth and prosperity. The smiling face of Ashutosha is always thinking of the welfare of the bhaktas. He is the Lord of the universe, the seed of the universe, the all-form, all-pervading, and the progenitor of the universe. He is omnipresent, all-pervading, the best in this universe, the destroyer of this universe, the cause of all causes, and the savior from the Narakas. He is the awakener and bestower of knowledge, the seed of all knowledges, and he himself is of the nature of knowledge and bliss. Seeing that eternal Purusha, the Raja of the Danavas at once descended from his chariot and bowed down with devotion to him, and to Bhadrakali on his left, and to Kartikeya in front of him. The other attendants did the same, showing such devotion even when they have come here to fight to the death against these deities. Shankara, Bhadrakali, and Skanda all blessed him. Nandishvara and others got up from their seats on seeing the Danava Raja and began to talk with each other on that subject. The Raja addressed Shiva and sat by him. Bhagavan Mahadeva, the tranquil self, then spoke to him thus: O Raja, Brahma, the knower of Dharma and the creator of the world, is the father of Dharma. The Dharmic Marichi, a devotee of Vishnu, is the son of Brahma. The Dharmic Prajapati Kashyapa is also Brahma's son. Daksha gladly gave over to Kashyapa in marriage his 13 daughters. Danu, fortunate and chaste, is also one of them. He's pointing this out because Danu is Shankarchuda's own clan mother. Danu had 40 sons, all spirited, known as the Danavas, after her. The powerful Viprachitti was the most prominent amongst them. Viprachitti's son was Dambha, self-controlled and very much devoted to Vishnu, so much so that for 1,00,000 years he recited the Vishnu mantra at Pushkara. His guru was Shukracharya, and by his advice he recited the mantra of Sri Krishna, the highest self. He got you as his son, also devoted to Krishna. In your former birth, you were the chief attendant Gopa of Krishna. You were very religious. Now, by Radhika's curse, you are born in Bharata as the lord of the Danavas, powerful, heroic, valorous, and chivalrous. All things from Brahma down to a blade of grass, the Vaishnavas regard as very trifling. Even if they get Salokya, Sarashti, Sayujya, and Samipya of Hari, they do not care a straw for that. Without serving Hari, they do not accept those things, even if those are thrust on them. Even Brahmahood and immortality, the Vaishnavas count for nothing. They want to serve Hari in Seva Bhava, or the mood of service. Indrahood, Manuhood, they do not care. You too are a real Krishna Bhakta. So what do you care for those things that belong to the Devas, that are something like false to you? Give back to the Devas their kingdoms thus, and please me. Let the Devas remain in their own places, and let you enjoy your kingdom happily in the Patalas. No need now for further quarrels. Think that you all belong to the same family of Kashyapa. The sins that are incurred, for example, the murder of a Brahmin, are not even 1/16 of the sins incurred by hostilities amongst relatives. If, O Raja, you think that by giving away to the Devas their possessions, your property will be diminished, then think that no one's days pass ever in one and the same condition. Whenever Prakriti is dissolved, Brahma also vanishes. Again, he appears by the will of God. This occurs always. True that knowledge is increased by true tapasya, but memory fails then, this is certain. He who is the creator of this world does his work of creation gradually by the help of his jnana shakti. In the Satya Yuga, dharma reigns in full. In the Treta Yuga, it is diminished by 1/4. Again, in Dwapara, only half of dharma remains. And in the Kali Yuga, only 1/4 remains. Thus, dharma sees increase and decrease. At the end of the Kali Yuga, dharma will be seen very feeble, like the phase of the moon is very thin on the dark moon night. See again, the sun is very powerful in summer, not so in the days of winter. At midday, the sun is very hot. It is not so in morning and evening. The sun rises at one time. He is then considered as young, or the day as young. At the time when the sun is high in the sky, his heat is felt very powerfully. And at a later time, he goes down. Again, in times of distress, which here is a poetic way of saying on cloudy days, the sun gets entirely obscured. When the moon is devoured by Rahu, the moon quivers. Again, when the moon becomes liberated from Rahu, she becomes bright again. In the full moon night, she becomes full, but she does not remain so always. In the dark fortnight, she wanes every day. In the bright fortnight, she waxes. In the bright fortnight, the moon becomes healthy and prosperous, and in the dark fortnight, the moon becomes thinner and thinner, as if attacked with consumption. In the time of eclipse, she becomes pale, and in the cloudy weather, she is obscured. Thus, the moonlight upon earth also becomes powerful at one time and weak and pale at other times. Vali now resides in Patala, having lost all his fortunes, but at some other time he will become Devendra. This earth becomes at one time covered with grains and the resting place of all beings. At another time she becomes immersed under water. This universe appears at one time and disappears at another. Everything moving or non-moving sometimes appears and again at another time disappears. Only Brahman, the highest self, remains the same. By Brahman's grace, I have got the name Mrityunjaya, the conqueror of death. I too witnessed many prakritic dissolutions. I have witnessed repeatedly many dissolutions and will in future witness many more dissolutions. The Paramatman becomes of the nature of Prakriti. Again, it is he that is the Purusha. He is the self. He is the Jiva. He thus assumes various forms, and again, lo, he is beyond all forms. He who always repeats his name and sings his glory can conquer at some occasion even death. He is not to come under the sway of this birth, death, disease, old age, and fear. He has made Brahma the creator, Vishnu the preserver, and me the destroyer. By his will we are possessed of those influences and powers. O Raja, having deputed Kala, Agni, and Rudra to do the destruction work, I myself repeat only his name and sing his glory day and night incessantly. My name is on that account Mrityunjaya. By his Jnana Shakti I am fearless. Death flies away fast from me as serpents fly away at the sight of Garuda son of Vinata. O Narada, thus saying, Shambhu, the lord of all, the progenitor of all, remained silent. Hearing the above words of Shambhu, the Raja thanked Mahadeva again and again, and spoke in sweet and humble words. Shankarchuda said, the words spoken by thee are quite true. Still, I have a few words to speak. Kindly hear. Thou hast spoken just now that very great sins are incurred by hostilities between kindred. How is it, then, that he robbed Bali of his whole possessions and sent him down into Patala? Gadadhara Vishnu could not recover Bali's glory, but I have done that. Why did the Devas kill Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu, Shumbha and the other Danavas? In bygone days, we labored hard when the Amratam was obtained out of the churning of the ocean, but the best fruit was reaped by the Devas only. However, all these point that this universe is but the mere sporting ground of Paramatman, who has become of the nature of Prakriti. Whomsoever he grants glory and fortune, only he gets that. The quarrel of the Devas and Danavas is eternal. Victory and defeat come to both parties alternately. So it is not proper for thee to come here in this hostility, for thou art the god of the nature of the highest self. Before thee, we both, Devas and Danavas, are equal. So it is a matter of shame, no doubt, for thee to stand up against us in favor of the Devas. The glory and fame that will result to thee, if thou art victorious, will not be so much as it will be if we get the victory. On the contrary, the inglory and infamy that will result to thee if thou dost get dire defeat will be inconceivably much more than what would come to us if we are defeated. For we are low and thou art great. Mahadeva laughed very much when he heard the Danava's words and replied, "O Raja, you are descended from a Brahmin family. So what shame shall I incur if I get defeat in this fighting against you? In former days, a fight took place between Madhu and Kaithaba against Srihari. Again, between Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha in Srihari. I myself fought with the Asuras of Tripura. Again, a serious fight took place also between Shumbha and the other Daityas, and the highest Prakriti Devi, the ruler of all of the progenitrix of all, and the destructrix of all. And then you were the Parishada attendant of Sri Krishna, the highest self. So the Daityas that were killed before cannot be compared with you. Then why shall I feel shame in fighting against you? I am sent here by Sri Hari to save the Devas. So either give back to the Devas their possessions or fight with me. There is no need in speaking useless talks. O Narada, thus speaking, Bhagavan Shankara became silent. Shankarchuda got up at once with his ministers. And here ends the 21st chapter in the 9th book on the meeting of Mahadeva and Shankarchuda for an encounter and conflict in the Mahapuranam Srimad Devi Bhagavatam of 18,000 verses by Maharshi Vedavyasa. Chapter 22. Sri Narayana spoke. Then the Raja of the Danavas, very powerful, bowed down to Mahadeva and ascended on his chariot with his ministers. Mahadeva gave orders to his army to be ready at once. So did Shankarchuda. A terrible fight then ensued between Mahendra and Vrashaparva, Bhaskara and Viprachiti, Nishakara and Dambha, between Kala and Kaleshvara, between Agni and Gokarna, Kubera and Kalakeyi, between Vishvakarma and Maya, between Mrityu and Bhayamkar, between Yama and Samhara, between Varuna and Vikamka, between Buddha and Dhrutaprashta, between Shani and Raktaksha, Jayanta and Ratnasara, between the Vasus and Varchasas, between the two Ashwini Kumaras and Deeptiman, between Nalakubara and Dhumra, between Dharma and Dhurandhara, between Mangala and Ushaksha, Bhanu and Shovakara, between Kantarpa and Pitara, between the 11 Adityas and Godhamuka, Churana and Khadgadvaja, Kanchimuka and Pinda Dhumra and Nandi, between Vishva and Palasha, between the 11 Rudras and the 11 Bhayankaras, between Ugra Chanda and the other Mahamaris and Nandishvara and the other Danavas. The battlefield then assumed a grim aspect, as if the time of dissolution had come. Bhagavan Mahadeva sat under the Vata tree, under the peepal tree, with Kartikeya and Bhadrakali, those three having not yet entered the battle. Shankarchuda, decked with his jewel ornaments, sat on the jeweled throne on his chariot, surrounded by kotis and kotis of Danavas. So far, the highest commanders of each army have not entered, but are watching the start of the battle. The army of Shankara got defeated at the hands of the Danavas. The Devas, with cuts and wounds on their bodies, fled from the battlefield terrified. Kartikeya gave words, "Don't fear," to the Devas and excited them. Only Skanda resisted the Danava forces. So he had initially been sitting under the tree, but upon his forces falling back, Skanda goes up and joins the battle. In one moment, Skanda slew 100 Akshauhini Danava forces. The lotus-eyed Kali then also engaged in killing the Asuras. She became very angry, and no sooner did she slay the Asura forces than she began to drink their blood. She easily slew with her one hand, and at every time put into her mouth 10 lakhs and 100 lakhs and kotis of elephants. Thousands and thousands of headless bodies came to strew the field. The bodies of the Danavas were all cut and wounded by the arrows of Kartikeya. They were all terrified and fled away. Only Vrashaparva, Viprachitti, Dambha, and Vikankana remained fighting with Skanda with heroic valor. Mahamari, too, did not show his back, but fought vigorously. By and by, they all became very much confused and distressed, but they did not turn their backs. Seeing this terrible battle of Skanda, the Devas began to shower flowers. The killing of the Danavas looked like a Prakritic dissolution. Then Shankarchuda began to shoot arrows from his chariot. The shooting of arrows by Raja Shankarchuda seemed as if rains were being poured on by the clouds. Everything became pitch dark. Only fires were seen emitting their golden tongues. The Devas, Nandishvara, and others fled away terrified. Only Kartikeya remained in the battlefield. Then Shankarchuda began to throw terrible showers and showers of mountains, snakes, stones, and trees, so much so that Kartikeya was covered by them, as the sun becomes obscured by fog. The Asura Raja cut off the weighty quiver and the pedestal of Skanda and broke Skanda's chariot. But the divine weapons of the Danava, the peacock of Kartikeya, became exhausted. Kartikeya threw a Shakti spear on the at the chest of the Danava, but before it struck, the Danava cut it down, lustrous like the sun, and in return threw his own Shakti spear. By that stroke, Kartikeya became stunned for a moment, but he immediately regained his consciousness. He then took up the quiver that Bhagavan Vishnu gave him before, and many other weapons, and descending upon another chariot built of jewels, began again to fight violently and valiantly. Getting angry, he resisted all those showers of snakes, mountains, and trees by his divine astras. He countered Shankarchuda's Agnayastra by his Pariyanya, or watery weapon, countering fire with water. He then cut down Shankarchuda's chariot, bow, armor, charioteer, and his bright crown, and he threw on Shankarchuda's chest a blazing Shakti spear of white color. The Danavendra fell unconscious, but at the next moment he regained his consciousness quickly, mounted on another chariot, and took a fresh quiver. The Danava was foremost in magic powers. He, by the power of Maya, made a shower of arrows, so great that Kartikeya became completely covered by that multitude of arrows. Then the Danava took one invincible Shakti spear, lustrous like 100 suns. It seemed that flames of fire were looking high, as if the time of dissolution had come. Inflamed by anger, the Danava threw that Shakti on Kartikeya. It seemed then that a burning mass of fire fell on him. The powerful Kartikeya became senseless. Bhadrakali immediately took him on her lap and carried him before Shiva. Shiva easily restored him to his life by his Jnana Shakti and gave him again indomitable strength. Kartikeya then got up in full vigor. Bhadrakali went to the field to see Kartikeya's forces. Nandishvara and other heroes, the Devas, Gandharvas, Yakshas, Rakshasas, and Kinnaras, followed her. Hundreds of war drums were sounded and hundreds of persons carried wine. Going to the battle ground, she gave a war cry. The Danava forces fainted at the cry of Kali. Bhadrakali shouted aloud inauspicious peals after peals of intimidating laughter. Then she drank wine and danced in the battlefield. Ugra Damstra, Ugra Chanda, Ortavi, the yoginis, dakinis, and the devas all drank wine for courage. Seeing Kali in the battlefield, Shankarchuda came up again and imparted the spirit of fearlessness to the Daityas, who were trembling with fear. Bhadrakali then projected the Agnayastra, the fire weapon, flaming like the fire of great dissolution. But the Raja again quickly put out that fire by his watery weapon. Kali then projected the very violent and wonderful Varunastra. The Danava easily cut it down with Gandharvastra. Kali then threw the flame-like Maheshwarastra. Shankarchuda rendered it futile by the Vaishnavastra. Then the Devi, purifying the Narayanastra with the mantra, threw it on the Raja. At this, the Raja instantly alighted from his chariot and bowed down to the Narayanastra. The Narayanastra rose high up like the fire of dissolution. Shankachuda fell prostrate on the ground with devotion. And by his devotion, the Narayanastra itself refused to strike him. The Devi then threw the Brahmastra after invoking it with a mantra, but it was rendered futile by the Danava's own counter Brahmastra. The Devi again shot various divine astras, invoking them with mantras, but they also were nullified by the astras of the Danava.
My eyes suffer from anxiety, so does my sister.
Then Bhadrakali threw a Shakti extending to a Yojana. The Daitya cut it to pieces by his astra. The Devi then, being very much enraged, became ready to throw Pashupatastra, when an incorporeal voice was heard from the heavens prohibiting her, saying, O Devi, the high-souled Danava would not be killed by the Pashupatastra, for Brahma granted him this boon that until for so long as Vishnu's kavacha will remain on his neck, and as long as his wife's chastity be not violated, neither old age nor death will be able to touch him. Hearing this celestial voice, the Devi at once desisted, but she, out of hunger, devoured hundreds and lakhs of other Danavas. The terrible goddess Kali then went with great speed to devour Shankachuda, but the Danava resisted her by his sharp divine weapons. The Devi then threw on him a powerful axe, lustrous like the summer sun, but the Danava cut it to pieces by his astra. The Devi, seeing this, became very angry and proceeded to devour him. But the Danava Raja, the lord of all Siddhis, expanded his body. At this, Kali became violently angry and, assuming a terrible appearance, moved quickly and with the blow of her fist broke his chariot and dropped the charioteer. Then she hurled on the Asura a Shula weapon blazing like the Pralaya fire. Shankachuda easily caught it with his left hand. The Devi became angry and struck the Danava with her fist. The Daitya's head reeled, and rolling, he fell unconscious for a moment, but the next moment, regaining his consciousness, he got up. But he did not fight hand to hand with the Devi in a fist fight. Rather, he bowed down to her. The weapons that the Devi threw afterwards were partly cut down by the Danava, and partly taken up by him and absorbed into him, and thus rendered futile. Then Bhadrakali caught hold of the Danava, and whirling him round and round, threw him aloft. Then the powerful Shankachuda fell down to the ground from high with a great force. He immediately got up and bowed down to her again. So he counters her stroke for stroke, but does not want to attack her with his bare hands. He doesn't want to punch her or grapple her, even when she attacks him in those ways, out of respect to her. He then gladly ascended on another beautiful chariot built of excellent jewels. He did not feel any fatigue and went on fighting. Then the Devi, Bhadrakali, feeling hungry, began to drink the blood of the Danavas and ate the fat and flesh. She then came back before Mahadeva and described to him the course of the warfare from beginning to end. Hearing of the killing of the Danavas, Mahadeva began to laugh. She went on saying, "The Danavas that got out of my mouth while I was chewing them are the only ones that are still living. Their number will be about 1 lakh. And when I took up the Pashupata weapon to kill the Danava, the incorporeal celestial voice spoke that he cannot be killed by you. But the very powerful Danava did not fling any weapons on me. He simply cut to pieces those that I threw on him." Here ends the 22nd chapter in the 9th book on the fight between the Devas and Shankachuda in the Mahapuranam Srimad Devi Bhagavatam of 18,000 verses by Maharishi Veda Vyasa. Chapter 23. Narayana said, Shiva, versed in the knowledge of the highest reality, hearing all this, went himself with his whole host to the battle. Seeing him, Shankarchuda alighted from his chariot and fell prostrate before him. Then with great force he got up, and quickly putting on his armor, he took up his huge and heavy bow case. Then a great fight ensued between Shiva and Shankarchuda. They fought for full 100 years, but there was no defeat nor victory. The result was a stalemate. Both of them, Bhagavan and the Danava, after 100 years quitted their weapons. Shankarchuda remained on his chariot, and Mahadeva rode on his bull. Hundreds and hundreds of Danavas were slain, but extraordinarily endowed with divine power, Shambhu restored to life all those of his party that were slain. In the meanwhile, an aged Brahmana, very distressed in his appearance, came to the battlefield and asked Shankarchuda, the Raja of the Danavas, "O Raja, grant me what I beg of you. You give away in charity all sorts of wealth and riches. Give me also what I desire. Give me, a Brahmin, something also. I am a quiet, peaceable, aged Brahmin, very, very thirsty. Make your promise first, and then I will speak to you what I desire." Raja Shankarchuda, with a gracious countenance and pleasing eyes, swore before him that he would give him what he would desire. And the Brahmin spoke to the Raja with great affection and maya, or great illusion and trickery. "I am desirous of your kavacha, the Narayana kavacha that he wears that renders him completely invulnerable." The Raja then gave him the kavacha. This is an amulet of birch bark that he wears around his neck with the Narayana kavacha written upon it. Bhagavan Hari, who had taken the form of that Brahmin, took that kavacha, and then, assuming the form of Shankarchuda, went to Tulsi. Coming there, he made his maya manifest and held sexual intercourse with her, her thinking that he was Shankarchuda, her own husband, returned. At this time, Mahadeva took up Hari's trident, aiming at the Raja of the Danavas. That trident looked like the midday sun of summer, flaming like a pralaya fire. It looked irresistible and invincible, as if quite powerful to kill its enemies. In brilliance, it equaled the Sudarshana Chakra. It was the chief of all weapons. No one other than Shiva and Keshava could wield such a weapon, and everybody feared it except for Shiva and Keshava. In length it was 1,000 dhanus, and in width it was 100 hands. It seemed lively, of the nature of Brahman, eternal, and not capable to be, it was not possible to notice whence and how it proceeded. The weapon could destroy by its own free leela all the worlds. When Shiva held it aloft, and aiming at Shankarchuda, he hurled it on him, the Raja of the Danavas, dropped his bows and arrows, and with his mind collected in yoga, began to meditate on the lotus feet of Sri Krishna with great devotion. At that moment, the trident, whirling around, fell on Shankarchuda and easily burnt him and his chariot to ashes. Shankarchuda then, assuming the form of a two-armed gopa, full of youth, divine, ornamented with jewels, holding a flute, mounted on a divine chariot, surrounded by kotis and kotis of gopas who came there from the region of Goloka, whose bodies appeared built of excellent jewels. Shankarchuda then went up to the heavens, to Goloka, where Sri Vrindavana is located in its heart. He went to the heavenly Vrindavan, full of rasas, and bowed down at the lotus feet of Radha Krishna with devotion. Both of them were filled with love when they saw Sudama, and with a gracious countenance and joyful eyes they took him on their laps. On the other hand, the Shula weapon came with force and gladness back again to Krishna. The bones of Shankarchuda, O Narada, are transformed into conch shells. These conch shells are always considered very sacred and auspicious in the worship of the Devas. The water in the conch shell is also very holy and pleasing to the Devas. What more than this, that the water in the conch shell is as holy as the water of any tirtha. This water can be offered to all the gods except to Shiva. Wherever the conch shell is blown, there Lakshmi abides with great pleasure. If bathing be done with conch shell water, it is equivalent to taking a bath in all the tirthas. Bhagavan Hari resides directly in the conch shell. While where Shankha is placed, where a conch shell is placed, there Hari resides. Lakshmi also resides there, and all inauspicious things fly away from there. Where women and Shudras blow the Shankas, Lakshmi then gets vexed, and out of terror she goes away to other places. On Narada, Mahadeva, after killing the Danava, went back to his own abode, where he gladly went away on his vehicle on the bull's back with his whole host. All the other devas went to their respective places with great gladness. Celestial drums were sounded in the heavens. The Gandharvas and the Kinnaras began to sing songs, and showers of flowers were strewn on Shiva's head. All the Munis and Devas and their chiefs began to chant hymns to him. Here ends the 23rd chapter of the 9th book on the killing of Shankachuda in Srimad Devi Bhagavatam of 18,000 verses by Maharishi Vedavyasa. Chapter 24. Narada said, how did Narayana impregnate Tulsi? Kindly describe that in detail. Narayana said, for accomplishing the ends of the Devas, Bhagavan Hari, as aforementioned, assuming the Vaishnavi Maya, took the Kavacha from Shankachuda, and then, assuming Shankachuda's form, went to the house of Tulsi. Dundhabi drums were sounded at her door. Shouts of victory were proclaimed, because everyone there thought it was Shankachuda returning in victory. And Tulsi was informed. The chaste Tulsi, hearing that sound very gladly, looked out on the royal road from the window. Then, for auspicious observances, she offered riches to the Brahmins, and she gave wealth to the bards, to the beggars, and the other chanters of hymns. At that time, Bhagavan Narayana alighted from his chariot and went to the house of the Devi Tulsi, built of invaluable gems, looking exceedingly artistic and beautiful. Seeing her dear husband before her, she became very glad and washed his feet and shed tears of joy and bowed down to him. Then she, impelled by love, made him take his seat on the beautiful jeweled throne, and giving him sweet-scented beetles with camphor, began to say, today my life has been crowned with success, for I am seeing again my husband returned from the battle. Then she cast smiling glances askance at him, and with her body filled with rapturous joy, lovingly asked him the news of the war in sweet words. O thou ocean of mercy, now tell me of your heroic valor, how you have come out victorious in war with Mahadeva, who destroys countless universes. Hearing Tulsi's words, the husband of Lakshmi, in the guise of Shankachuda, spoke these nectar-like words with a smiling countenance. O dear, full 1 samvatsara the war lasted betwixt us. All the Daityas were killed. Then Brahma himself came and mediated. Peace then was brought about, and by the command of Brahma, I gave over to the Devas their rights. When I returned to my home, Shiva went back to his Shivaloka. Thus saying, Hari, the Lord of the world, slept with her and engaged in sexual intercourse with her. But the chaste Tulsi, finding this time her experience quite different, and being able to tell that he was not Shankachuda, questioned this within herself, and at last questioned him. Who are you, O magician? By spreading your magic you have enjoyed me. As you have taken my chastity, I will curse you, since this was, as you will recall, necessary to thwart the boon of Shankachuda that prevented him from being killable. Bhagavan Narayana, hearing Tulsi's words and being afraid of the curse, assumed his real beautiful figure and revealed his true identity to her. The Devi then saw the eternal Lord of the gods before her. He was of a deep blue color like fresh rain clouds, and with eyes like autumnal lotuses, and with playful leelas equivalent to tens and tens of millions of love personified and adorned with jewels and ornaments. His face was smiling and gracious, and he wore his yellow-colored robe. The love-stricken Tulsi, seeing that lovely form of Vasudeva, immediately fell senseless, overwhelmed with love for him. And at the next moment, regaining consciousness, she began to speak. O Lord, thou heart is like a stone, thou hast no mercy. By hypocrisy thou hast destroyed my chastity, my virtue, and for that reason didst kill my husband. O Lord, thou hast no mercy, thy heart is like a stone, so let thee be turned into a stone. Those who declare thee a saint are no doubt mistaken. Why didst thou, for the sake of others, kill without any fault another bhakta of thine? Thus speaking, Tulsi, overpowered with grief and sorrow, cried aloud and repeatedly gave vent to lamentations. Seeing her thus very distressed, Narayana, the ocean of mercy, spoke to her according to the rules of Dharma. O honored one, for a long time you performed tapasya in this Bharata to get me as your husband. Shankarchuda too performed tapasya for a long time to get you. By that tapas, Shankarchuda got you as a wife. Now it is highly incumbent to award you also with the fruit that you asked for. Therefore I have done this. Now quit this terrestrial body of yours and assume a divine body and marry me. O Rame, you shall be like Lakshmi. This body of yours will be known by the name of Gandaki, a very virtuous, pure, and pellucid stream in the holy land of Bharata. Your hairs will be turned into sacred plants, and as they will be born of you, they shall be known by the name of Tulsi, the holy basil plant. All the three worlds will perform their pujas with the leaves and flowers of this Tulsi plant. Therefore, O fair-faced one, this Tulsi will be reckoned as chief amongst all flowers and leaves, in heavens, earth, and the patalas. And before me, O fair one, you will reign as the chief of trees and flowers. In the region of Goloka, on the banks of the river Viraja, in the Rasa Mandala, where all amorous sentiments are played in Vrindavana forest, and Bhandira forest, and the Champaka forest, and the beautiful Chandana forests, the sandalwood forests, and in the groves of Madhavi, Ketaki, Kunda, Mallika, and Malati, and the sacred places, you will live and bestow the highest religious merits. All the tirthas will reside at the bottom of the Tulsi tree, and so punya will accrue to all. O fair-faced one, there I and all the devas will wait in expectation of the falling of a Tulsi leaf. Anybody who will be initiated and installed with the Tulsi leaf, with water shaken off of Tulsi leaves, or water in which Tulsi leaves were placed, will get all the fruits of being initiated in all the yajnas. Whatever pleasure Hari gets when thousands and thousands of jars filled with water are offered to him, the same pleasure he will get when one Tulsi leaf will be offered to him. Whatever fruits are acquired by giving Ayuta cows as presents, these will also be acquired by giving Tulsi leaves to Vishnu. Especially if one gives Tulsi leaves in the month of Kartika, it is particularly in that month that one gets these fruits, as above mentioned. If one drinks or otherwise receives water in which Tulsi leaves have been soaked, at the momentous time of death, one becomes freed of all sins and is worshipped in the Vishnu Loka. He who drinks daily the Tulsi leaf water certainly gets the fruit of a lakh Ashvamedhas. He who plucks or culls the Tulsi leaf by his own hand and holding it on his body dies in a tirtha, in a holy place, while holding Tulsi, that he picked himself, goes to Vishnu Loka. Whoever wears on his neck the mala made of Tulsi wood gets certainly the fruit of Ashvamedhas at every step. He who does not keep his word, holding the Tulsi leaf in his hand, goes to the Kala Sutra Naraka as long as the sun and moon last. He who gives false evidences in the presence of the Tulsi leaf goes to the Kumbhipaka Naraka for the life periods of 14 Indras. He who drinks or even receives a bit sprinkled upon him, or on his lips, a bit of water in which Tulsi leaves have been soaked at the time of death, certainly goes to Vaikuntha, ascending on a vimana made of jewels. Those who pluck or cull the Tulsi leaves on the full moon night, on the 12th lunar day, on the passing of the sun from one sign to another, at midday or at the twilights or at night, while applying oil on their bodies, during periods of impurity or while putting on night dresses, They really cut off Narayana's head. In other words, these are inauspicious times to harvest Tulsi. O chaste one, the Tulsi leaf is kept in the night, is considered sacred. It is considered good in Sraddha, vow, ceremony, in the making over of any gift, in the installation. So Sraddha here is the feeding of the ancestors. It is good in vows and ceremonies, in the making over of any gift, in the installation of any image, or in worshipping any deva. Again, the Tulsi leaf fallen on the ground, or fallen in water, or already offered to Vishnu, if simply rinsed, can be used again for any holy purposes. Thus, O good one, you will remain as a plant on this earth, and will remain in Goloka as the presiding deity thereof, and will enjoy daily sport with Krishna. And also you will be the presiding deity of the river Gandaki, and thus bestow punya in Bharata. You will be the wife of the salt ocean, which is my Ansha. You are very chaste. In Vaikuntha, you will enjoy me as Rama lives with me, referring to Lakshmi. As for me, I shall be turned into stone by your curse. I will remain in Bharata, close to the bank of the river Gandaki, or rather, in the river Gandaki, the stones on the bed of the river. Millions and millions of insects with sharp teeth will form rings, the convolutions and the shalagrama, fossilized insects, in the cavities of the mountains there, representing me. Of these stones, those that have one door or one hole in them, 4 convolutions adorned by the garland of wildflowers, meaning having a mark that looks like they are a mark on the stone that looks like a garland, and which look like a fresh rain cloud, are called Lakshmi Narayana Murtis. And those that have one door, 4 convolutions, and look like fresh rain clouds but no garlands, are called Lakshmi Janardana Chakra Shaligrama. Those that have 2 doors, 4 convolutions, and decked with a mark like a cow's hoof, and do not have the garland mark, are called Raghunatha Chakra Shaligramas. And those ones are sacred to Rama and may be worshipped as a form of Rama. Those that are very small in size, with 2 chakra marks and looking like fresh rain clouds, but do not have the garland mark, are named Vamana Chakra Shaligrama and are used as a murti of Vamana avatar. Those that are very small in size, with 2 chakras and the garland mark, know them to be the Sridhara Chakra Shaligrama. These always bring in prosperity to the household, if one of those is kept in a household. Those that are big, circular, no garland mark, with 2 circular chakra marks are known as Damodara Shaligrama. Those that are mediocre in size, with 2 chakras and marked as if struck by an arrow, having marks of arrows and bow cases, are known as Ranarama Shaligrama. Those that are middling in size, with 7 chakras, having marks of an umbrella and ornaments, are called Raja Rajeshwara Shaligrama. They bestow the Rajya Lakshmi to persons. Those that have 14 chakras and are big, looking like fresh rain clouds, are named Ananta Shaligrama. They bestow Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. Those that are in their forms like a ring, with 2 chakras, beautiful looking like rain clouds, having cow hoof marks and of medium size, are named Madhusudana Shaligrama. Those that have 1 chakra are called Sudarshana Shaligrama. Those that have their chakras hidden are called Gadadhara Shaligrama. Those that have 2 chakras looking horse-faced are known as Hayagriva Shaligrama. O chaste one, those that have their mouths very wide and extended with 2 chakras and very terrible are known as Narasingha Shaligrama. They excite vairagyas to all who serve them or promote detachment. Those that have 2 chakras, mouths extended and with elliptical garland marks, are called Lakshmi Narasingha Shaligramas. They always bless householders who worship them. Those that have 2 chakras, so the Narasingha Shaligrama mentioned before, is not suitable to be kept in a house or to be worshipped by householders. Those ones to be worshipped only by renunciates who have given up householder life. But the Lakshmi Narasingha Shaligrama are good for householders. Those Shaligrama stones that have two chakras near their doors that look even and beautiful and with marks manifested are known as Vasudeva Shaligrama. They yield all sorts of fruits. Those Shaligrama stones that have their chakras fine and their forms like fresh rain clouds and have many fine hole marks with wide gaping facets are called Pradyumna Shaligrama. They yield happiness to every householder. Those that have their faces of two chakras stuck together and their backs capacious are known as Sankarshana Shaligrama. They also always bring in happiness to householders. Those that look yellow in color, round and very beautiful, are Aniruddha Shaligramas. Most Shaligramas are black in color. The sages say they give happiness to the householders. Where there is the Shaligrama stone, there exists Sri Hari himself. And where there is Hari, Lakshmi and all the Tirthas dwell there. Worshipping Shaligrama Shila destroys the Brahmahatya and any other sin whatsoever. And worshipping the Shaligrama stone, looking like an umbrella, kingdoms are obtained. And worshipping circular Shaligrama Shilas, great prosperity is obtained. And worshipping cart-shaped Shaligrama Shilas, miseries arise. These are not, the cart-shaped ones should not be worshipped. And in worshipping stones whose ends look like shula spears that are sharp, death inevitably follows. Those whose facets are distorted bring in poverty, and yellow stones, other than the specific type, if they are round and very beautiful, bring in various evils and afflictions. Those whose chakras look broken cause diseases, and those whose chakras are rent asunder bring in certain death. Observing vows, making gifts, installing images, doing sraddhas to the ancestors, worshipping the devas, all these become highly exalted if done before the Shaligrama Shila. One acquires the merits of bathing in all the tirthas and in being initiated in all the yajnas if one worships the Shaligrama Shila. More than this, merits acquired by all the yajnas, all the tirthas, all vows, all austerities, and reading all the Vedas are all acquired by duly worshipping the holy Shaligrama Shila. He who performs his abhisheka ceremony always with Shaligrama water, water in which a Shaligrama, water which has been poured over a Shaligrama, being sprinkled with Shaligrama water at the initiation and installation ceremonies, acquires the merits of performing all sorts of gifts and circumambulating the whole earth. All the devas are no doubt pleased with him, who thus daily worships the Shaligrama. More than this, all the tirthas want to have his touch. He becomes a Jivan Mukta and becomes very holy. Ultimately, he goes to the region of Sri Hari and remains in Hari's service there and dwells with him for countless prakritic dissolutions. Every sin like Brahmahatya flies away from him as serpents do at the sight of Garuda. The Devi Vasundhara, the earth, becomes purified by the touch of the dust of his feet. At his birth, his next birth, all his predecessors, or a 1 lakh of his predecessors are saved. He who gets the Shaligrama Shila water during the time of their death is freed of all sins, goes to Vishnu Loka and gets nirvana, becomes freed entirely from the effects of karma and gets, no doubt, dissolved and diluted forever in Vishnu. He who tells lies while holding a Shaligrama in his hands goes to the Kumpipaka hell for the rest of the lifespan of the current Brahma. If one does not keep his word, uttered with a Shaligrama stone in his hand, one goes to the Asipatra hell for 1 lakh manvantaras. He who worships the Shaligrama Shila without offering Tulsi leaves on it, which is necessary in the Shaligrama worship, or separates the Tulsi leaves from the stone, will have to suffer separation from his wife in his next birth. So if one does not offer the Tulsi leaves in the conch shell for 7 births, he remains without his wife and becomes diseased. He who preserves the Shaligrama stone, the Tulsi, and the conch shell, these 3, together in one place, becomes very learned and becomes dear to Narayana. Look, He who casts his semen once in his wife, no doubt suffers intense pain at separation from her. In other words, through sex, one develops attachment. So you became dear to Shankarchuda for one whole Manvantara. Now what wonder that you will suffer pain in his bereavement. O Narada, thus saying, Sri Hari desisted. Tulsi quitted her mortal coil and assumed a divine form, and began to dwell on the breast of Sri Hari like Sri Lakshmi, Devi. Hari also went with her to Vaikunta. Thus, Lakshmi, Sarasvati, Ganga, and Tulsi, all the four came to be so very dear to Hari and are recognized as Ishvaris, or heavenly queens. On the other hand, the mortal body of Tulsi, which died, no sooner left by Tulsi's spirit, became transformed into the river Gandaki. The river Gandaki is it was referred to repeatedly here as being in the land of Bharata, but today, with political borders moving, it is in Nepal. Bhagavan Hari too became converted into a holy mountain on the banks of the river Gandaki, yielding punya to the people. Insects cut and fashion many pieces out of that mountain. Of them, those that fall into the river yield fruits undoubtedly. So the Shaligrama stones in the river Gandaki are the ones referred to as the Shalagrama. Those pieces that fall on the ground become yellow colored, and they are not at all fit for worship. O Narada, thus I have spoken to you everything. What more do you want to hear now? Say. Here ends the 24th chapter on the 9th book of the Tulsi Mahatmya, the glory of Tulsi, and the Mahapuranam Srimad Devi Bhagavatam of 18,000 verses by Maharishi Veda Vyasa. And one more chapter, since it's short and it ties up the entire Tulsi cycle. Narada said, when the Devi Tulsi has been made so dear to Narayana, and thus an object for worship, then describe her worship and Tulsi Stotra now. O Muni, by whom was she first worshipped? By whom were her glories first sung? And how did she become, therefore, an object of worship? Speak out these to me. Suta said, hearing these words of Narada, Narayana, laughing, began to describe this very holy and sin-destroying account of Tulsi. Narayana said, Bhagavan Hari duly worshipped Tulsi and began to enjoy her with Lakshmi. He raised Tulsi to the rank of Lakshmi and thus made her fortunate and glorious. Lakshmi and Ganga allowed and bore this new union of Narayana and Tulsi, but Sarasvati could not endure this high position of Tulsi owing to her anger. She became self-conceited and beat Tulsi on some quarrel before Hari. Tulsi became abashed and insulted and vanished off. Being the Ishvari of all the Siddhis, the Devi, the self-manifest, and the giver of the Siddhi Yoga to the Jnanins, Tulsi, oh what a wonder, became angry and became invisible even to Sri Hari. Not seeing Tulsi, Hari appeased Sarasvati and, getting her permission, went to the Tulsi forest. Going there and taking a bath in due accord and with due rites, he worshipped with his whole heart the chaste Tulsi and then began to meditate on her with devotion. O Narada, he gets certainly all Siddhis who worships Tulsi daily with this 10-lettered mantra. Srim, Hrim, Klim, Aim, Vrindavan Ye Swaha. The Raja of mantras, yielding fruits and all gratifications like the Kalpa tree, the Kalpa Vraksha. O Narada, at the time of Tulsi worship, the lamp of ghee was lighted and dhoop, sindura, sandal, offerings of food and flowers, etc. were offered to Tulsi. Thus hymned by Hari, Tulsi came out of the tree pleased, and she gladly took her refuge at his lotus feet. Vishnu then granted her a boon that you will be worshipped by all. I will keep you in my heart and in my head, and the Devas also will hold you on their heads. And he took her to his own abode. Narada said, O highly fortunate one, what is Tulsi's dhyana, stotra, and vidhi? Kindly describe all these. Narayana said, when Tulsi vanished, Hari became very much agitated with bereavement and went to Vrindavana and began to praise her. Bhagavan said, the Tulsi plants collect in multitudinous groups, hence the pundits call it Vrinda, or a bounteous forest growth. I praise that dear Tulsi. Of old she appeared in the Vrindavana forest and therefore is known as Vrindavani. I worship that fortunate and glorious one. She is worshipped always in innumerable universes and is therefore known as Vishvapujita, or universally worshipped. I worship that Vishvapujita, by whose contact these countless universes are always rendered pure and holy, and therefore she is called Vishvapavani, she who purifies the universe. I am suffering from her bereavement. I remember the Devi. Without Tulsi, the Devas do not get pleased though other flowers be heaped on them. Therefore, she is considered as the essence of all flowers. Now I am in sorrow and trouble, and I am very eager to see her, who is of the nature of purity incarnate. The whole universe gets delighted when the bhaktas receive her, hence she is called Nandini, so may she be pleased with me. There is nothing in the universe that can be compared to her, hence she is called Tulsi. I take refuge of that dear Tulsi. That chaste dear one is the life of Krishna, hence she is known as Krishna Jivani. Now may she save my life. O Narada, thus praising, Ramapati remained there. The chaste Tulsi then came to his sight and bowed down to his lotus feet. When she, becoming sensitive out of the insult, began to weep, Bhagavan Vishnu, seeing that sensitive dear one, immediately took her to his heart. Taking then Saraswati's permission, he took her to his own home and brought about, first of all, the agreement between her and Saraswati. Then he granted her the boon. You will be worshipped by all, respected by all, and honored by all, and all will carry you on their heads. I will also worship, respect, and honor you and keep you on my head. Receiving this boon from Vishnu, the Devi Tulsi became very glad. Saraswati then drew her to her side, made her sit close to her. Lakshmi and Ganga, both with smiling faces, attracted her and made her enter into the house. O Narada, whosoever worships Tulsi with her 8 names, Vrinda, Vrindavani, Vishvapujita, Vishvapavani, Tulsi, Pushpasara, Nandini, and Krishna Jivani, and understands their meanings, and sings this Ashtakam, Tulsi Ashtaka duly, acquires the merit of performing the Ashvamedha Yajna. Especially on the full moon night of the month of Kartika, the auspicious birth ceremony of Tulsi is performed. In ancient times, Vishnu worshipped her at that time. Whoever worships with devotion on the full moon night of Kartika month, the universe purifying Tulsi, becomes freed of all sins and goes up to the Vishnu Loka. Offerings of Tulsi leaves to Vishnu in the month of Kartika bring merits equal to those in giving away Ayuta cows. Hearing this Tulsi stotra at that period gives sons to the sonless, wives to the wifeless, friends to the friendless. On hearing this stotra, the diseased become free of their diseases, persons in bondage become free, the terrified become fearless, and sinners are freed of their sins. O Narada, thus it has been mentioned how to chant Tulsi stotra. Now hear her dhyana and vidhi. In the Vedas, in the Kanva Shaka branch, the method of worship is given. You know that one is to meditate on the Tulsi plant without any avahana, without any invocation, since the Devi is always in the plant. You don't need to invoke the Devi. And then worship her with devotion, presenting all sorts of offerings as required to her. Now hear her dhyanam. Of all the flowers, Tulsi is the best, very holy and captivating the mind. It is a flame burning away all the fuel of sins committed by man. In the Vedas, it is stated that this plant is called Tulsi because there can be made no comparison with her amongst all the flowers. She is the holiest of them all. She is placed on the heads of all and desired by all and gives holiness to the universe. She gives Jivan Mukti and devotion to Sri Hari. I worship her. Thus, meditating on her and worshiping her according to due rites, one is to bow down to her. O Narada, I have described to you the full narrative of Sri Tulsi Devi. What more do you want to hear now? Say. And here ends the 25th chapter of the 9th book on the method of worship of Tulsi Devi and the Mahapuranam Srimad Devi Bhagavatam of 18,000 verses by Maharshi Veda Vyasa. And we can end there for today, having finished all of the material on Tulsi.
Wow, awesome. Thank you so much, David.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for coming.
Jai Tulsi. Jai Shri Tulsi.
Yeah. Jai Sri Tulsi.
When Vishnu took the form of the monk and went away with Tulsi, what was going on with Shankaracharya?
Shankaracharya.
Shankaracharya.
That was the moment of his death. He had the
Right.
boon. Yeah. Since those two things, those two things what were required to fulfill the boon to kill him.
The boon to kill, and what was the boon to kill him?
That he could not be killed, not even by the gods, so long as his wife was faithful, and that he wore the Narayana Kavacha on his neck.
Oh yeah, I didn't remember the one about his wife, but wow.
Yeah, that was why that had to be done.
Wow. And so then the stones, they're in this river in Nepal.
Yes.
Vishnu took on that form as a fulfillment of the Tulsi's curse.
Yes.
That's interesting. Like, but it's not like it was like for a lifetime or something like that. It's still going on to like it wasn't like he's stuck in these stones. Like, how was that a curse? I guess is my question.
It's not much of a curse. It was a curse that she uttered in anger at this on the spot, but it's not something that's in any way a detriment to Vishnu.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, no, the Shaligrama worship is still a sacred thing that people do all the time. My own mother has a Shaligrama Shila that she keeps in her home and so on. It's a very widespread practice. They all come from this one river, the Kali Gandaki River in Nepal.
Amazing. And are these now? I was googling. They're these like little fossilized stones.
Yeah.
Like
there's fossils
shells
in them. Yeah, they all have fossils in them.
Interesting. And this is like unique to this river in Nepal.
Yes, they only come from this one river.
Wow. How do you know if you get a real one on Amazon?
Yeah, you have to check the seller because there are
there frauds, I bet?
Yeah, for sure there are. Definitely there are. Yeah, you have to find a reputable source of genuine shaligramas.
Yeah. Are they really expensive? I could Google this, but
it varies because like we went through the list of different kinds. Like the big ones are, but like there's some kinds of them are quite small and it'll vary.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like something pretty awesome to have on your altar.
For sure. Yeah. Although as long as you take proper care of it.
Right, there's that.
Yeah, it has to be worshipped together with Tulsi, the plant. And it's also supposed to be kept by a conch shell.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So
it requires a conch shell as part of the set if you're going to have a shaligrama.
Wow. Needs conch shell and Tulsi.
Yeah.
Whoa. Valid. Very cool. Wow. Thanks so much, Devi.
Yep.
Really neat. Amazing chapters and very, very between Tulsi and Kali. A lot of neat, amazing, epic stories of two forms of Divine Mother today. It was so sweet.
Yeah. Yep. Thank you very much for coming.
Jai Ma.
Jai Ma.